Welcome to the Women's STEM Panel Luncheon. We are delighted to gather here today to celebrate the experiences, leadership, and the impact of women in science, technology, engineering, mathematics. On behalf of the STEM division, thank you to our students, faculty, and staff for joining us today. Events like this provides the opportunity to learn not only about career pathways, but also about real experiences, challenges, lessons learned, and what shapes a professional, especially in the STEM environment. Before we begin, I would like to just recognize and thank some individuals and organizations that made today's events possible. I'd like to start with our Dean, Marie Tepe. She has provided the leadership and continued commitment to creating opportunities for our students. I would also like to thank President Phil Sisson and the interim provost and vice president of academic affairs, Matt Olson, for supporting us. I also would like to thank Stephanie Adams and Nicole Nissen for working behind the scenes on all the logistics to make the event happen today. A special thank you to MA Northeast STEM Network for generally sponsoring the food, the lunch for us today. And definitely, but not last, our deepest appreciation to all of our panelists who took some time from their busy schedule to share their experiences with us today. So before we begin, I just wanted to kind of explain how the panel is going to go. Each panelist will begin with an introduction, where they're going to be sharing their professional experiences, their education journey, lessons learned, that they learned along the way. Then we're going to have a moment for questions. Then we'll have a moment for closing remarks from our panelists. And hopefully, if time allows, we're going to have a little bit of time for networking, connecting, where you guys can ask more questions if that is what you have to. And then we'll be all done for today. So, to get us started, I'm going to just give a personal note here. This event is very meaningful to me because I had the privilege of actually knowing some of our panelists in different capacities throughout my professional career, some as classmates, some as colleagues in the industry, some as leaders and mentors. So this, it's really important to me to stand here because they are important individuals, and this just shows the power of mentorship and connection within this, this field and this environment. So without any further ado, let's begin with our first panelist.
Okay. Awesome. Sorry, there were photos I got thrown up. Hi, my name is Jody Giordano. I have a PhD from Tufts University, where I also went to undergrad. I was a biochemistry major for the wrong reasons, because I liked biology and I liked chemistry, and I could not decide which to major in, and that seemed like a good compromise. Again, wrong choice, don't, yes. I wound up staying, I played softball undergrad and got involved in a lab undergrad and stayed for a PhD. It was a great kind of formative experience, got my hands dirty. We were a lab of all ex-jocks, and we're a tissue engineering lab, so we were trying to study ways that we could make new body parts when we broke the ones we had. So through that process, I studied materials, biomaterials, and cell culture to try to regrow ligaments. As soon as they were going to turn off my Tufts email address, I did a postdoc at Tufts downtown at the medical school in cancer research. So my materials experience and growing new tissues kind of organically led me into small animal studies. no one wants to do small animal studies, but they're a necessary kind of research tool for bringing medical devices and drugs forward. So it is a valuable skill to have, and also to participate in. I am an animal lover at heart. I have 2 dogs at home, and it was hard, but it was a good transition to appreciate life and the value that animals were giving you to develop these new therapies for people. Through that process, I kind of hit a crossroads in my postdoc of everybody, at the time seemed to be, I'm either going to be an academic professor or I'm going to go into industry. And it was an interesting crossroads for me because I had friends who were, some people who were born to be doctors and they know they want to do that. And you had some people who were like, I'm going to be a professor someday. I wasn't sure. I did a postdoc and didn't know if I wanted to go into industry or if I wanted to stay in academics. I didn't have the drive to write grants and get money and, didn't have that formative idea that would carry that. So I explored industry and worked at Wyeth at the time, who's since been bought by Pfizer. But it was a big pharma experience. I told you I worked in materials. We were part of a lab. I joined a lab that was very niche in the context of pharmaceuticals. Big pharma is a lot about cell biology and developing drugs. I was with a group of 8 people who were trying to attach drugs to a material so that if you were having a rotator cuff surgery done and you wanted a drug just in your rotator cuff, it would stay there. So we were looking at drug delivery materials at the time. Wyeth got bought by Pfizer. All of our projects were on the chopping block for assessment on whether or not they were going to be funded. So I went back to academics. Again, kind of followed an unconventional scientific path of every time I came to a crossroads, I chose at that time. And so went back into academics, worked with a lot of great grad students who you spend so much time in your PhD and get to a point where you're ready to defend your thesis and you pack up your PhD and you put it on a shelf and hope that someone takes it over. And a lot of times it doesn't and it stops there. So my role in the lab was to help continue those projects that had legs, if you will. And certain universities have great seed programs to get research translated into the market, right? You put all of your time and your energy into studying something and hoping it makes a difference for somebody someday. And a lot of times it stops when you leave. And so it was working with students to help carry on their projects, help them transition to new homes so that they could continue that growth and hopefully help folks someday. In that time, I started, wondering myself what was next. I didn't want to be in the lab so much anymore. I hit that point where it was like, basically, I'm pregnant and I don't want to do histology and inhale chemicals anymore. And so I looked into regulatory affairs. And so that was kind of my parallel life as how do you translate these things and how do you fill that gap to be able to get things into people's hands, to get them on the market. And regulatory affairs to me was very interesting. So I worked in some startup companies where it was like, you're still a scientist, but you're also writing stuff. And got the feel for what it's like to work with the FDA on the company side. So had some great experiences with small startups where you do everything. Worked around MedTech in Boston to try to build that expertise. And a friend of mine, a connection from grad school was like, I work for the dark side. Do you want to come work at the FDA? And at the time it was always like, yeah, but I don't want to move. And they were like, you don't have to. And so I joined the other side. I work in the Center for Devices in Radiological Health. I've been there for just over 3 years. I joined as a lead reviewer for 2 years, so I'm part of the, if you've ever worked with anyone in government, there's a trail of department and teams and divisions and a giant whole network of things to get to where you actually fit in this web. I work in OHT4, which is the office, I don't even know what we are. when you review when you have a medical device, they get lumped into different offices so that the people reviewing them see the same products over and over. So this web goes down. So presently I'm the assistant director for the team I joined. Our team manages the pre-market and post-market review of plastic and reconstructive surgery devices. What that means in a nutshell is that if you want to sell your dermal filler, you will prepare all of your documents and you will send them to my team. And my team will evaluate if they are safe enough and you've done enough testing following standards to put them onto market. And it's a give and take. We are the review side, so we ask you questions, and once you satisfy those requirements, you can sell your product. I am not the person who shows up and audits your space. That is a different person, although, you know, based on your experience, most of the time you meet the FDA by them showing up at your door and trying to find things wrong with your quality system. That's not me. Yeah, it's been a wild ride, and I always have, it's not been a direct path. It's been choosing, you know, when the fork in the road presents itself. I really like what I do now. I'm glad I fell into public health because for me, science was always finding the need and where you fit. And not everybody is a cancer researcher where you go to work every day and just feel the weight and the responsibility and the drive for what you do. But I found that in regulatory through public health, it's given me a great opportunity to interface with some great people. You're helping make products safe. And so that's been my ride.
Hi, my name is Linda Cross. I'll start with my current role. I'm currently the Senior Director for the Quality Transformation Team at Lilly for Organizational Change Management. Now, organizational change management does not sound like something that is in STEM because it really deals with people and how they transition through processes and systems. And I can honestly tell you, when I started in Middlesex, which will be, I think now almost 20 years ago probably, which is crazy to say, I would not have guessed that this would be my role today. Because I started in the labs, and I started with, Professor Bladen, Professor Petit, who's no longer here, Professor Stephen, who's there, as well as special topics. And I thought, I'm gonna be in the labs forever. That's what I'm gonna do. But much like Jody, where you start is not where you end when it comes to the science industries. There's so many opportunities that are there that allow you to branch out and learn yourself. And it's okay to not exactly know where you want to be. And it's okay for your first job not to be exactly what you want either. Get your foot in the door and start figuring out what works out best for you. So after graduating from Middlesex, I started working at Biogen. And I went straight into completing my bachelor's at BU as well, which had a great transition program. I know right now there's a connection with Northeastern. But it was an amazing transition for me because, again, everything was prepared in terms of career fit, in terms of what I was learning in school and what I actually executed at my job. I had people who graduated with their bachelor's while I still had my associate, who would come to work in the manufacturing labs, and they would be learning everything anew. Everything would be, they didn't expect to work at a bioreactor. They didn't know what the bioreactor worked like. They did mostly small-scale benchtop activities that didn't include specifics to the bio industry. So I was very fortunate, just like you guys, to be at a program that is catering specifically to the industry that is such a powerhouse in Massachusetts. So really make sure you learn everything. It is absolutely applicable. I don't think there's one class I took that I felt was not applicable to my work at, once I started working. Even my English classes. I remember some of the English classes we did English writing, how to write an email. I must tell you, really pay attention to those things. I know everyone here is very used to texting, but in the real world, your emails are going to matter, the way you phrase them. Sometimes even a promotion is based on how you do not have spelling errors and issues in your communication. So take those classes that are not even science classes just as serious, because they do have an impact on your career. So from Biogen, I started in the manufacturing labs, and then I transitioned into training coordination, which is where I was working with Livia. We were also classmates in Middlesex, but then started working as training coordinators because we both realized we had a great knack for training people on new processes, new systems. And keep that in mind, that is exactly where I am right now. Although my title says change management, it is really just a higher level of looking at how we integrate systems and processes into the workforce that we have. So as a training coordinator, this was a great way for me to actually learn new systems quickly. So instead of me stuck at one job, learning one process and executing that one process, we had this amazing job where we learned all new processes coming in, whether it was interface systems that were coming into the organizations like Delta V, Syncate systems that you probably hear later on as you learn. We were right in the front of learning how those systems were integrated. And it's amazing to me, I just started working at Lilly just about a month ago. The systems that I implemented at Biogen, LIMS systems that I hope to support, Syncate systems, TrackWise systems, those are the same systems 20 years later that I'm helping to support, whether it's the new revisions or so forth. So again, take note of everything that you're doing. It all connects. One way or another, where you're starting is going to have an impact on your future. I would say one thing that was really critical to my career journey as I transitioned from working in the manufacturing lab to training coordinator. I was a documentation supervisor at one point, and then I was also, I worked at Sanofi as well as a training specialist, principal training specialist, until I transitioned to Takeda, where I was actually in regulatory affairs, so landed in regulatory affairs. I got to see the gamut of all things biopharmaceutical, and I was always open to learning. Be open to learning. If there's an industry that allows you to grow in different directions, this is the industry. I cannot say that enough. Opportunity growth is always there for you. You just have to find something you're excited about, take that initiative, talk to your managers, and let them lead you where you might not know how to proceed. In addition to just being able to transition from different roles and being open to learning, I had mentors that really helped me out. And I would really say, as you're in this room, find mentors within the industry. Find mentors that can help you out. And sometimes I was lucky those mentors were my direct manager. So Danielle Thompson, who's right at the end over there, was one of my managers, and she was amazing in terms of just seeing how she executed. And I'm gonna say something and let people know, one thing I learned from Danielle was, don't always wait for permission for everything. Because there are times where you have a great idea and there are just like walls coming up in every direction. So if you see an opportunity, I'm not saying break the rules here, we still have quality and FDA that's governing everything, but if there's an opportunity for you to advance a process and work with different people, even if you are receiving, I would say, some pushback. Don't let the pushback be a no that you can't do that. Your ideas are worth it. And I'll give an example of what you did, Danielle, because it stays with me, and I take it as an example. So Danielle, when she joined Biogen, she had the team work on creating some collaboration with WPI, which was amazing. And not only did you implement training for manufacturing, cell culture, and purification, but you went on to implement also master's degrees that were on-site. And I remember afterwards, HR coming and saying, well, that's not your role. But that was what was needed for us to be successful as an organization to upskill our teams so that they're ready for the future. So that's just an example of how, to me, leaders like Danielle inspired me to continue moving forward when I had great ideas. Don't think your ideas are not important and not impactful, and don't think those hurdles are a sign for you to stop. Really examine the situation and push forward with the allies that you do find.
My name is Louisa Antonopoulos, and similar to both Jody and what Linda just shared, there's a lot of similarities and differences in all of our journeys, and what I think is remarkable is that I didn't start my journey in the STEM world because I thought I should be a scientist or I should be in this world. My goal was always to be a middle school teacher. I wanted to be a middle school teacher more than anything in the world, and I wanted to teach math and science because I thought it was so cool, because I wasn't very good at it. And I had a high school math teacher say to me at the end of the year, whatever you do, don't go into math and science. Don't do it. And I took that as, I'm going to do it. So I went to school and I decided to be a math teacher. And I pursued that journey. I completed my degree in middle school math and science, and I started to do that. And while I was doing that, I was working at a defense company. And I had some amazing mentors and women that helped guide me through my journey, my career journey, even my education, that to this day I see on a regular basis and I confide in everything I do. So I just want to point out the people that you meet in your journey, make sure you continue to stay connected with them. While I was doing this, I got an opportunity to take over the learning and development at this defense company. And I thought, oh, this is kind of like teaching, so I guess I'll do it. And I started to love it, and I saw the similarities and working with engineers and scientists. I thought, these people are really smart. I want to learn more from them. And I continued to do that, and one day one of my mentors says, why don't you go back to school to get your master's degree in adult and organizational learning? It's totally what you should be doing. You'll make a lot more money. And I thought, okay, I could do that while I'm working, and I did. And I fell in love with it, and then through networks again, I got an opportunity to work for Biogen, where I got to meet so many of these lovely women. And there I got to continue my love for learning and sharing and helping people develop in their careers, not only as leaders, but the people that are doing the work. So I got great opportunities to work on projects with Livia, Linda, and Danielle in so many different capacities. I continued my journey in it, and as I was in the biotech world, and I got to meet, the people are just amazing. You get to meet people like them here on this panel, and I thought, I can't leave. I gotta figure out how I'm gonna stay here, because this is really good. And I have been able to move from the GXP world of training and learning and development to R&D, to the operations and manufacturing I dabbled in, and as I look at my career, I'm like, yep, I can do all these different things within the biotech world and continue to learn, which is so important. When we're out of school, it doesn't mean we stop learning, we just learn a little differently. We learn through the people that we meet, we learn through the articles that we read, maybe it's even an email from someone. So I'm going to encourage everyone to don't think of your formal learning to be the end of learning. You're just going to learn differently. I also wanted to share that don't not take risks because people tell you not to. Miss Pratt my high school math teacher who told me not to go into math, I think of her often. Because I am so happy doing what I do. And I wouldn't be where I am today, working with the people that I get to work with, if I didn't take that risk.
I want to thank my fellow panelists for sharing your stories. Like, that's amazing. I'm looking forward to hearing your stories too. So I'm inspired too, even sitting on this side over here. So my name is Parika Pataipamal, but everyone calls me Pinky. I've known Livia 20 years. I was like, for 20 years. So I, similar to my fellow panelists, and I'm sure you're going to hear from me here, we all are coming from very broad experiences to where we are. So it never, wherever you start, you never know what those skill sets you learn along the way is going to play into it, right? I think Steve Jobs had a great commencement speech at Stanford University where he said that you go where your curiosity takes you, right? Even you're taking these biotech classes, and don't look at things that are based off of the position title. You look at skill set, right? What skills am I going to learn from these experiences? And continue to be curious, continue to take risks. So I'm echoing the themes that I'm hearing from here. Continue learning, risks there. So my career journey, my background is in biomedical engineering. I graduated, I was part of the first class for Georgia Tech in biomedical engineering, so, and now I'm on the board for Georgia Tech. So it's actually like this fun full circle when, I got out and I was like, never gonna see you guys again, and then I came back and now I'm an advisor. So it's just funny how that works, but I think giving back is also really important. So I graduated there. It was really hard because I was in Atlanta. It was really hard to find my first job because I knew I wanted to go in the biotech industry. I come from a family of doctors, and my family told me, don't go to med school, but help people. But just don't go to med school. It's not worth it. So I'm like, well, my whole like high school and everything was all about like, I'm gonna go maybe pre-med, I'm gonna go to med school, I'm gonna become a doctor just like everyone else. And then I got discouraged. But I knew I still wanted to go into the medical field to help people. Like that's kind of where my core is. And so I decided to go into biomedical engineering because I'm like, okay, well that's like biomedical and I enjoy engineering, so let's put it together. That was a rocky start because Georgia Tech never graduated an undergraduate class, so we were the guinea pigs and that was hard. I have scars from that. But it was still a really great experience because it showed grit, right? So I think even when things don't go your way, no matter like you didn't get the grades you wanted, it's all about getting up and trying again, right? Trying something different, trying again, don't give up. Just continue to build that grit because grit is a factor in how you deal with problems. There's a lot of problems in the world, there's a lot of things that you're gonna come up with, but it's a matter of how you deal with it, right? So, graduated from Georgia Tech, got my first job at Biogen. I was in a group called Manufacturing Sciences. And my interview was very memorable at Biogen. So first, I get to the manufacturing building where my interview was. And so, get there, interviews were, backing up a little bit, the night before, the Red Sox won the World Series, so they broke the curse, right? So I'm like dating myself here. So I'm like all excited because I'm like, I'm in Massachusetts, my interviewers must be Red Sox fans, so it's gonna be great. So I get into the interviews, half of my interview panelists were actually Yankee fans. So they were in a bad mood. So that was already like, they were already in a bad mood. And then we're in the manufacturing building, and then all of a sudden we got evacuated because of a gas leak in the middle of my interview. And this was like in October. I was wearing like a suit jacket, and it was really cold, so I'm like in a little suit, standing outside with the rest of the people with my little resume in hand, freezing my butt off. And then they were like, all right, we need to continue the interview, let's go into this other building. And it was during lunchtime, so it was very loud there, and I'm trying to hear my interviewers' questions. And I couldn't hear anything she was saying. I'm like, I'm so sorry, I can't hear you. If you remember Cheryl Bauer, she's very soft-spoken, right? Yes, she's so nice. Yes, and you know, her voice is very soft-spoken, she's fantastic, but I'm like, I can't hear you. And everyone's screaming because the Red Sox won. So I thought, coming out of that interview, I was not getting that job. I really was like, I sucked. I really blew it, you know, and I tried my best, but that's all I could do. I was like, I tried my best. 2 days later, I got the offer. And they were like, we were so impressed with your resilience, with all the circumstances that happened, that you stuck through it, you were prepared, and that's something that we need for manufacturing. And I'm like, you just never know, because I honestly thought, I'm like, you know, as a free trip to Boston, great. I got to see some friends, you know, had an experience with interviews. So just try your best with anything, being resilient, but I got that job, and it was my first step into the biotech industry. Very excited. Got to work with fantastic people like Livia, with Linda, with Danielle, like so excited to work with them. But it was also the great first step because I was able to see this. I didn't look at it from a position perspective, I looked at it from a skill perspective, right? Like there's so many skills that are so translatable, like whether you're a chemical engineer, whether you're a biomedical engineer, whether you're a mechanical engineer. Since biomedical engineering was so new, I had to break it down for human resources and hiring managers of like, these are the skills you're looking for, right? It's not the degree, it's the skills. Like, what can you bring to the table? So like, take degrees aside, what do you guys bring to the table? And listening to Linda, it sounds like you guys are bringing a lot to the table, and you need to, regardless of where your degree, regardless of like where you are, like what skills can you bring to the table? So definitely focus on that. Once I was at Biogen, started manufacturing sciences, then I wanted to get closer to the patient because helping people was like at my heart. I went to technical development doing drug products. So drug substance was stuff that like our active pharmaceutical ingredient, right? And then you stick it to vials and syringes and that's your drug product. I know we're simplifying it, there's more complexity there, but once it gets a drug product, you're getting closer to the patient. So then I started doing my MBA at BU at the same time I was working, and I was like, hey, this is actually kind of interesting. And decided to go into business development at Biogen. So Biogen was great because I was able to rotate between different positions. I was there for 14 years, but it didn't feel like 14 because every couple of years I would switch roles. And even though those roles were actually more lateral roles, it was the skill sets that I was building. So I was in business development, then I went to marketing, and then I went back to pharmaceutical operations because I realized that that was interesting, but it didn't fulfill my heart, if that makes sense. Like I really wanted the technical piece because it's more tangible and you can see progress. I really wanted that. So I went back into more in a project management role, and then an opportunity came up through an ex-Biogen employee who, she was very frustrated that there were enough female founders that she founded her own company, and tapped me to ask if I could lead her technical operations because they found a molecule, she was doing research, her team was doing research, they found a molecule, they're like, we need to manufacture this. So with all of those skills of drug product, drug substance, drug product, business development, operations, marketing, all those skill sets made me perfect for going to a small company. So you just never know, like just be curious, you never know where everything comes into play. And then when I went to Pantheon, I was there for 3 years, setting up operations, setting up supply chain, learning so much. And then we got bought out by Merck. When I was at Merck, I was only there for 6 months because I'm like, I can't deal with going from a company of 50 people to like 10,000 people. So I decided to go back to startup. So now I'm head of technical operations at a company called Upstream, and I was employee number 3. So that was crazy, going from smaller companies and then watching, we've been in existence for 4 years, and just watching, I was employee number 3, now we're at 75 people, and just watching the team grow and watching the company grow and just like being part of something is amazing. So to Linda's point, it doesn't matter what your first job is, just get your first job. Like leverage those skill sets, and when you continue to be curious, continue to learn, continue to make friends along the way, and there's gonna be some people that are gonna try to bring you down, and that's where the grit comes in, like pick yourself back up and try again. So Yeah.
Hello, it's such an honor to be here today to share my story with these amazing women and also Cheryl. They probably sound a lot like her.
That's great.
Yes, so as we've been discussing, we have a lot of connections here. And this is where I started my journey 20 years ago, a little bit over 20 years ago, which is very scary to say out loud. And my name is Sarah Hagler. I am currently at Vertex and an associate director of quality assurance, where I support the Casgevy operations. And if you haven't heard of Casgevy, that is a cell therapy for sickle cell disease. So as a quality assurance associate director, my role is to ensure that each batch is safe and effective for the patients, and also to ensure that our manufacturing operations are compliant with regulatory agency expectations. However, I have to admit, I did not foresee this path for myself. When I graduated high school, I had a 1.7 GPA, not great. And I also never took SATs. I was far too busy playing games most of the time, which is still the case sometimes on weekends. But I did not ever foresee this as something of my future until my last few months of high school, where I learned about mutations in DNA. And I thought it was the most fascinating concept and how it worked. And I said, I have to learn more about this. So I discovered that Middlesex had a program, a certificate program for biotechnology. And I enrolled, to the shock and surprise of most of my family. Also, side note, later in life I did discover that I am what a lot of people call neurospicy. So I think biotech is a great field for those of you that have some special skills in that area. So I signed up for classes and met my first mentor, an amazing woman, Dr. Bladen. And that's also where I met Olivia in labs. And I just have to say that the classes and labs prepared us so well for jumping right into the industry that you learn everything from how to use a micropipette, how to work in a BSC aseptically, and even the small things like how to record information using GMP principles, like always one cross through mistake. And that all transferred right into the workplace. So as part of the certificate program, you are required to have a certain number of hours working in the industry. So I think that is really what helped me, kind of pushed me into, you gotta get a job, just go for it. And I started working just down the road at EMG Serono in their buffer preparation group in manufacturing. And that is the beginning of my career, really. I never stopped working. And I went to school for 12 years because I was working full-time during the days, taking classes at night, and I never had student loans because of it. And all my friends, they all were just racking up student loan debt. But because I went to Middlesex and I started working and the night classes were offered, I never had to worry about student loans because companies will pay for you to go to school. So definitely take advantage of that because a lot of people struggle nowadays with all of that student loan debt. So I started in manufacturing and then moved on to QC microbiology, where I was sampling the clean rooms to ensure there's no contamination. Then from there, I think you are definitely hearing some themes here jumping around. that I moved on to QC and analytical, where I worked on testing samples of product to ensure that it passed specifications. And then sadly that site, just down the road, it was moved to Europe, so I had to find another place to work. At that time, I moved on to Genzyme, which is now Sanofi. We were there at the same time. And I continued my role in QC, and then I met another amazing mentor there, and she said, you should try QA. And I did not feel like I had the knowledge to go into QA. Like QA, they have people that up to QA, and they're supposed to give all guidance and support. But because I had an excellent mentor, she was able to give me that push and said, just try it, just go. And I absolutely love QA. And I've been in QA now for 10 years. Ooh. That's,
Time flies when you're having fun.
I don't like listing these years anymore, but I do that. So I also graduated from Middlesex and was able to move on to BU. Getting more things going on here. And they did take a lot of my credits, so that really helped progress the process much faster to get a bachelor's. So leverage that connection with, is it Northeastern now? Absolutely do that. And after that, I continued in QA, where I was supporting, it's a type of enzyme therapy in operations. So that was an excellent experience at Genzyme, and they continued in several different roles there as well. And then I heard, this was about 2018, and then I heard about cell and gene therapy, which is kind of a new thing happening. And I said, I have to get into this. This seems so fascinating. Let me get this much better. So, I was very lucky that Sanofi at the time was starting up a cell and gene therapy program. And I just said, I need to find a place here. And they had multiple cell and gene therapies for different types of diseases. Like, well, one of the most fascinating ones was a gene therapy for a certain type of blindness. And you can look that up later. I don't think Sanofi ever ended up pursuing that one, but many companies have. And the potential with these therapies is incredible. And from there, I thought, okay, I think I'm ready for a smaller company, but I want to stay in cell and gene therapy, even though it's risky. And moved on to CRISPR Therapeutics. Also graduated from BU, and I was enjoying this free ride with school, so got to keep going. And ended up going to Johns Hopkins for a master's in biotech. By the way, I remember 1.7 GPA and no SATs, but ended up with a master's, so, and for free, by the way. It was all because of Middlesex, but that was possible. So CRISPR was very exciting. And I was also in QA supporting the design of a new facility. And after CRISPR, I was there for 2 years, moved on to Sarepta, which is very close down the road. It's a gene therapy company. They unfortunately did some downsizing recently, but that always leads to more opportunities. And at Vertex now, this is kind of funny, that Casgevy was originally a CRISPR therapeutics program, so it was like full circle. So really, sometimes moving into your second role can be kind of scary, but you quickly learn that all these companies it's like just changing rooms. You go into a different company, but it's all the same sort of processes, ways of working, and never be afraid to try new opportunities if you're comfortable. Actually, the best advice I can give is if you are comfortable, then be afraid. You should be uncomfortable as often as possible, and that just means you're always growing and you're not missing out on any opportunities. But I know that my life would be very different without the school, and I hope all of you experience a similar wild ride.
How do I follow this? So a little bit about me. I know a lot of the people on the panel, and nice to meet everybody in the room. You know a little bit about me from Linda and a few others that spoke. Where did I start? It's been so long. It went by really quick, but really slow at the same time. So I started the same as Pinky, where I had a clinical lab science bachelor's. And I think I was the first biomedical biotechnology program at UMass Lowell, which I saw them right outside. And that's where I got my master's there. And I loved it. Like, I loved working in the lab. I did cell culture. I worked with animal models. There were a lot of things on the panel that working with cholesterol-lowering drugs at the time. And I didn't foresee myself going down the road of biomanufacturing and operations. So I got my master's there, probably the first program that went through. And then I wanted to get my PhD. So I followed that for a while. I did lose funding when I was going through my PhD program, so I started teaching. I started teaching at community colleges because I had that background. Taught some classes here, taught some at Mount Wachusett community colleges, and then also headed up a program that was funded by the DOL, which is the Department of Labor, to retool folks that were displaced. A lot of them were veterans. A lot of them were people that worked in paper industry that were going through layoffs, and get them ready for the BMS site in Devens, because they saw a need for people with similar translatable skills to go into their large-scale company, which has now been there a while, but then it was new. That was around 2012, we'll say it. Yeah, I'm old. So that was very successful. I was able to place a few hundred people through that program, and probably close to 100% placement. I would say that was a proud moment for me. Still have all those connections, so I want to kind of keep the themes that were connections as one of them, and grit is another, is super important. So through that, I met a lot of great people, they were placed, but then I got recruited. Like, EMS, like, we like what you do, and a lot of people that you put through the program, why don't you come over? We have a contract role. Like, contract? What does that mean? Is it full-time? Maybe, we'll see. And that's how I started. I was a contractor at BMS. I had a few stints. I was a trainer there. I was also in QA operations there, doing investigations. Soon after that, I went to Biogen. And at Biogen, that's where I met a lot of these ladies. I started off as the more on the manufacturing training side, working with Lydia and Linda and others, doing a lot of the technical training, which I loved. Soon after that, I think that was a few years, I headed up a manufacturing purification group and helped lead through transition of that manufacturing operation, which was really good learning for me, and met really great people there that we're still connected today. So I'm going to say those words, learning, is I learned from each one of those individuals, and it was grit that got us through the final bottling, which I believe was New Year's Eve of that transition. Yeah. And then after that, I consulted for a period of time, and soon after went to Takeda, where in Takeda I was there 8 years, almost 9, and I think I had 5 assignments. So one thing I think I heard from all these ladies is, yeah, be open to those skills that you need. Be open to take advantage of the opportunities. And one of my mentors at Biogen and I know some of these people know him, but also you're always being interviewed. How you respond to an event that's unplanned, how you respond to someone that may say something not ideal is what people remember and could get you that job down the line without even going through a formal interview. And I always keep that in the back of my mind. So I was with Takeda, and the roles that we're in, I was a transformation leader, and you'll see which was more on the factory of the future, a lab of the future, which you see a lot of those out and about on LinkedIn. I was a change agent, change leader. I led a manufacturing upstream operation for bioreactor and roller bottle operations at Takeda. And again, they brought me in because they had to transition out an operation to another plant, so tech transfer it. And I had those skill sets that I acquired that were not easy to acquire, but were good learnings. And then my last assignment there was to lead, again, a manufacturing training organization that they hadn't done there yet, but we had done it at Biogen. And also lead up their tech transfer project team, which I loved. So it kind of brought all the skills that I learned through my career just because I said, yeah, I'll do it. I'll raise my hand, take it. So that was my last role there. And now it's kind of interesting. It's all full circle. So I'm consulting currently, and it brings together my workforce training for when I was, at the community college of DOL. It brings together my industry partners. It brings together all of it, and it's really interesting how it comes to. So key takeaways I would say is, like these ladies said, bring grit, be strong, do it. Don't if you think there's a question, just don't think about it, just do it. And then communication. How you talk to people, how you treat people is what they remember. That could be a make or break on getting an opportunity or not. So connect and treat people well. That's a little bit about me.
So now we're going to open for questions from the audience, and we're going to pass the mic out. Just raise your hand and.
Hi, thank you so much for all of your inspirational stories. So I'm a biology professor here, and I have several biology students who are pretty much on their transition to finishing their 4-year degrees or potentially also entering the workforce. So I'm wondering if you could give them some guidance about maybe skill sets they should be highlighting on their resumes that might be helpful in getting those first jobs. Do you have any interview skill tips that might be helpful as they're on their journeys?
This is on now. I have a loud voice anyway, so I don't really need it. My advice, I advise kids that are transitioning into the workforce, and it's an emphasis on your lab skills. It's an emphasis on any internships that you have, and it's an emphasis of really because you don't have that much skills because you're just coming out of school, you got to show that you take initiative. Like those cover letters, I know you're like, why do I need to write a cover letter? But that's actually giving you more emphasis on like who you are and what you bring to the table. But the skill sets, if you do any internships, if you're able to volunteer in a lab or a hospital or something, anything, do that, right? Because that's almost equivalent to the real world experience, but a lot of hiring managers know that you're just coming out of school, but they want to see like what skills you've gained there, right? It doesn't matter where you went, it's like what can you bring to the table. I think also showing if you're a part of any clubs. I also advise going to networking events if you're able to, like going to and just practice your pitch of like, hi, I'm learning I know that your company does this, like what skills are you looking for, right? And it's those soft skills that's gonna get you through the door and give you, and have your resume at the top, because like once you go through LinkedIn and stuff, it's really hard because you kind of reach this HR wall. So I really emphasize try to meet people, network, do informational interviews, understand what those needs are after those informational interviews, and tweak and customize your resume. Don't use, one resume does not fit all. Tweak it for positions that are open or skills that you hear from after doing these informational interviews.
Yeah, so I will give a couple of just specific examples. If I remember, it has been 20 years since I've taken classes here. But list some of the specific skills from your labs. So even using the microscope, and like I mentioned before, micropipetting is a huge one. That causes a lot of issues in the industry, just poor techniques, not knowing how to use a micropipette. So having that skill makes a difference. Even things like crayon staining, if you've done that. If you've isolated cells in cell culture, that's huge. Cell culture is big. Aseptic techniques, definitely want to list that. So think of some of those hands-on skills that you've developed in your classes. Most of them will apply.
I'm going to kind of take a different perspective, just as not being a scientist or someone that works or has experience in a lab. But when you're going for interviews, when you're doing your networking, be genuine and be curious. There's nothing better than meeting someone that truly is applying for a job because they want it and because they're curious to learn, not just because they can do the job. And I'll share, I had a mentor, it was actually a very high-level person, and I thought, I can't believe this person's gonna mentor me. I am so lucky. And I can't wait to see what he's gonna get me ready for the next role, what my next role was gonna be. And I really thought that was what my mentorship was gonna be. But we spent our mentorship talking about, excuse me, our why, what my why was. And I thought, I can't believe this man is spending this much time with me about my why. But it has made such a difference in every conversation I've had with leaders, with future potential opportunities about why I want to do what I do. And I think that comes through so strongly in an interview. The skills are really important, experience is important, but really being genuine about why you want to do what you want to do is so important.
And I'll echo the fact that you can highlight your skills within the labs. It was really critical. I'll also just add a little bit more about those transferable skills. For my first job within the industry, I was coming from working at Payless, working in a nursing home, and I was able to use the transferable skills within my resume. So when I was talking about working in the nursing home, I said I monitored patients just like you would monitor cells. I was responsible for taking those vitals, just like you would monitor a bioreactor. I opened the Payless store. For those who are like, what's Payless? I know it doesn't exist anymore, it's a shoe store. I would open and close the store. So that showed that I had a sense of responsibility if I was trusted to open the store and close the store. And of course, list out all of your laboratory experience that's in there. I would also add, learn about the company. I think it was mentioned, and you mentioned, learn about the company. Come in knowing what the company actually does, some of their products. Don't learn all of them, but know the blockbusters. And lastly, practice your interview skills. Have somebody interview you in advance because you're gonna get nerves if that's the first time you're going in there and nobody has ever interviewed you for such a position. Have a friend, colleague, classmates interview you, so at least you're relaxed to a certain degree. You know what's supposed to be coming up next, and you have your answers prepared. So that will help. Still also try to be as genuine as possible, but they know you're here to put your best foot forward.
just a final tack on as well, some great points made up here. It definitely goes a long way to list out your skills from classes. Just saying I took cell biology, I'm not going to read and acknowledge that if I see it on a resume, but if you can expand on those skills that you took away from the class or applications that you've learned, it definitely goes much further. I had a thought, and now it's gone. The same with the preparation of showing up and having done some homework. Engage with questions. We're giving interviews right now, and for those folks who come and we ask if they have any questions, and it's like, nope. That's you're not expected to know everything about the company, and if you need something clarified, ask them, because you'll stand out as having a discussion. I remember having a discussion with them because they asked something, not even if it's insightful, you cared enough to want to know more, and that does a lot to stay in people's minds when you're going through that process, just to be memorable. It doesn't have to be something flashy, but just, it shows that you took the effort.
I have one more.
I have one more, actually maybe two more things to add. And this goes with internships too, so it's not just people transitioning, like this also goes for internships as well, right? Like be prepared. The interview is not just you selling yourself to them, it's also you understanding what the culture is of that company, right? Because it could be a completely toxic culture, and you will be miserable. Your first step into industry might be miserable because you didn't ask the questions that, hey, am I going to be a good fit? What programs do they have to sponsor, women, underrepresented minorities, like all of that stuff. Like you kind of want to make sure you understand the culture and it fits in with you, right, as well. So it goes both ways. That's why it's important asking those questions, like as Jody said. Like it's not just, but ask what's important for you, right? Like what making sure that it also kind of fits your moral compass as well, because that's just as important. Also, this actually happened to me, but I had an interviewer FaceTime, ask if his mother could FaceTime our interview so he could monitor it. Don't do that. Don't do that. I'm sorry. Like, I know parents have to be involved, but no. You're individual. Make sure it's you. I don't want any helicopter parents or guardians in my interviews, because that's just, no. That's a boundary that has been crossed. So just letting you know, PSA.
I can't.
Definitely don't do that. One thing I just wanted to add is going into the interview, or even where you want to be going, right? You've gone through your academics, knowing the academic knowledge that you need to learn to attain your degree. Put some time in what your strategy to get where you want to go looks like. That gets to be like being engaged, being present, asking those questions. Once you put maybe an hour aside to really think outside the academics what that looks like for you, I guarantee you're going to have questions going into that room. And your interviewer will sense that learning, questioning attitude, that engagement, that wins the interview. If an interviewer is going to bring in 10 people for an interview, who's going to stand out? You want it to be you. And how are you going to make that difference? So always going in the room, thinking of what that would look like for you if you were sitting on the other side of the table. That's what I would recommend. If you haven't thought about your strategy, say 5-10 years, companies do it. Individuals should do that too. So that I found that as a good learning for myself, just if I could tell my 19-year-old self, that's a long time ago, that I probably would tell her that, because I didn't do that back then. Just something to add.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the information. It's very helpful. I have a question. Any of you married? If you are, do you have children? If you do, what are the challenges that you face in working in the industry full time as a married lady with children?
Yes, I'm married. I have one daughter. She's 11. She kind of likes me. I was just kidding. I'm embarrassing, I guess. But I would say when I had her, I was in manufacturing. So a challenge would be I covered both day and night shift at the time. So trying to fit in, you know, all those things of having a newborn while being exhausted and, you know, running operations was tough. There's some challenges there. But what I learned is how you prioritize. Like what's important at work and what are those what's your short list? What are the actions and deliverables? And then also for yourself. How do you establish those for yourself for your own well-being so you can make it through your long career? So it's keeping an eye on those priorities for yourself within work and at home. Because you don't want one to be more than the other. They're both important. You only have one, you know, family. You want them to love you. So I think that's what I learned through the years. It's just how to prioritize better.
I don't have children, but I'm going to share something from a mother that I worked with. She said she thinks of her career in seasons. And she had a baby, and she had a very demanding role, but she took on a different role that allowed her more flexibility for a short time so that she could prioritize. And I just love that she said, you have different seasons in your life, and you can just change, and it's all about that flexibility.
So I'm married, I have two kids. I have a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old, and we were just talking about my daughter has a very strong eye roll since she was 5. She has a so she gets it honestly. But so like my career journey has been, like, I think you've heard this, like it's been kind of everywhere, like you just never know where you're going. And it was also during the time when we were in, so Livia also worked in the Women's Innovation Network at Biogen. It was also during like this Sheryl Sandberg time of like leaning in. It's like, yes, leaning in, yay! But then at certain times you're like, you're exhausted leaning in, right? You're exhausted. So there's times where you're like, you know what? I don't need to lean in and go in all the time. Like I can like lean out for a little bit. It's a season. It's a different season for me because you have different priorities. When you have like a newborn, you're like, I'm just trying to figure out my life, going back to work, childcare, all of those things, right? So you just have to flex. And it's also important to have a partner that is also supportive and understanding. Like like the family is, there's a community to help take care of your family. So now, like when I was in the startup, like it was long days. I had like, and luckily I had my mom help out because my husband was traveling. So there was like some consistent childcare there. And then as they grew up, I made a network of friends through my kids' friends, and all of the moms are also in different seasons of motherhood, but we all stick together to help manage our kids. So I actually have a small village. I'm lucky enough to have invested time back to those relationships. It's not just career relationships, it's also family relationships. And not mentoring from a career perspective, it's also mentoring from a parent perspective, right? So you learn there's different facets of mentorship, and sometimes I need a mom that's also a full-time mom that has like 3 kids that somehow managed through and is like a complete badass in their role. And I'm like, how did you do it? She's like, lots of help and maybe some alcohol. Like great advice. But her point was also like, she also invested in these relationships with other moms that were in the same situation or similar situation where like we knew that our kids were going to be safe, right? Because if we can't depend on our partner because they also have a career going on too, like we can depend on someone else. So it was an investment in different facets of life. And there are times where you, from a career perspective, like sometimes you lean out and you spend more energy building the community that you need just for your family to thrive in as well.
I love what I've heard so far because I can't agree more. I am a mother of 3, 13, 9, and 7, and I am definitely not cool. I'm very embarrassing. But I will say that, echo what I've heard is, your partner makes a huge difference in your success. So I feel like I'm lucky with who I chose as a partner, and that was a big deal when I was choosing my partner, is I wanted to have a career, and I also wanted to have children, and that really was important to me when choosing him, lucky bastard, and family. But I will also say the family that you build at work, the networks, the women, and even the men that you meet, and to have them help you through those difficult times. I can't tell you how many times I had to leave a room because I was so tired, because I was up all night, and I had to answer a question that I just couldn't answer, and I had to lean on somebody. And without the people that I had in my network, the people that I worked with, the relationships that I built, I would have never made it as a mother or as a career woman without those people. But it's okay. It was so amazing to meet people that said, yeah, I'm exhausted too. I haven't slept in days. And it was like, all right, how are we gonna help each other out through this meeting or this project and lean on each other? Again, building relationships is so important.
I'm a mom as a bonus mom, so I came into motherhood in a very different way. But I can just give advice from a perspective of, one, know yourself, know your limits. It's really important, even as I selected opportunities, I knew my limits. For example, my first job at Biogen was working night shift. I knew that was not gonna work out because I just didn't have the ability to stay up all night. At night, in the day I wasn't sleeping. No matter what, my sleep schedule would not allow me to become nocturnal. And I had to tell my supervisor, this is not gonna work. And a lot of people have children and you're trying to do a night shift and you have kids at home. Know what makes sense for your family, know what makes sense for your biology. Don't try to push things that just are not feeling right. And I know when you're trying to get your first job, it's a little bit harder because you're trying to just get your foot in the door. But if you can find a way to find that balance for yourself, the better. Even like making mistakes and so forth, really understand your work-life balance, understand the support structures that you need in place, and make those happen. Your boss is not gonna come home and get a babysitter for you and make sure that all of that stuff is done. You have to manage that and make sure it's done.
One last one from, I have a nearly 9-year-old son, and just some practical considerations. Regardless of how strong or involved your partner is, my husband's great, but he's not mom. And mom goes above and beyond, and mom is always right, it's always the greater than sign is mom, because the needs on you are always greater than dad. And I'm no dig on any great dads in here. Communicate and just set that expectation in your workplace. I recall being a young employee and being like, oh, Darren disappears every day at 4. What the heck? And it's like, because Darren has kids to pick up. And not being in that same stage of life, help others around you know your reasons and be clear on your availability. When my son was very young, I was in a startup role, and it was demanding because you're on call a lot just for needs. And daycare is daycare, and they shut down and they're closed on schedules, and you have to work with that. Being available, like letting folks know I'm leaving, but I will be available after he's in bed. It went a long way to let them know that you're not shirking anything, you're not trying to disappear, but just being clear in your communication that I have a life too. It's, yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I do have one. It's more like clarification of a question. I know most of you said, thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you all for this meeting here. When I first hear about this meeting, I did not know what to expect. I was like, will I learn something new here? What is this meeting even about? I learned about this meeting from my professor Kimberly right here. And now that I joined here, I learned so many things that I don't even regret why I'm here. I just keep learning from each of you. I have a question, but for this question, I have to give a little context about it. Most of you said you did, from where you started is not where you finished. You just keep jumping in and on, and you said you focus on the skills that you were learning. But while you were learning, what type of skill that you, what type of job were you perfect in your mind, like picturing in your mind to know what skills to focus on to keep learning? If the things you're learning right now, is it actually the one you wanted, or is it gonna be a good fit for you? How do you make a difference from the skills you're learning? Because when you're learning in a class, it's not only one skill that you're learning, but it's like a build-up of skills. So which one do you type to focus on more to learn what you're learning?
So just to start the answer, which I'm sure will evolve, leaving school and going into the workforce, at least for me, you don't know what you don't know. Like most things in life, until you experience it, it's hard to imagine yourself, in what you would be doing in a day-to-day. So I think that the start is embracing the skills that you gather while you're in school. And that's your foundation, right? You can be confident joining a role, to do the skills that you've learned. In that workplace setting where you land first, you see how pieces fit together. And then it changes your idea of, and your preferences. And you know what? I think I've never seen that. I like that better. Or, you know what? I never want to do this again. Those are both important feedback that you're going to get once you enter the workplace. And so, as you grow in a given position, it's great if you have a long-term where you want to see yourself. It's totally natural if you have no idea. And part of that process is learning and seeing where other pieces fit. Because science is so, I'm in regulatory now, and regulatory and quality, everybody started somewhere else. And I think that's true for many science roles. Everybody started somewhere else. You were on a bench at some time doing something else. You did something else, and now you're focused into a project. And each time you start a role, you're going to learn their system. Their system is great, but each company has their own system too. And so feeling confident in what you're taking away from academics to take that first jump and get your feet wet and see where things fit together, I think that's the seed, right? That's going to help you grow and see what you like and what you prefer and where you want your skills to evolve to.
I'm going to take a very simplistic analogy. The way I think most of us learned what we liked and what we were passionate about is a lot like trying a new meal. That's simple. Really, you look at a meal and you're like, wow, that looks really good. I want to try that out. And you just go and try it. You might fall in love with it and say, I want to eat this for the rest of my life. That's what I'm going to do. Or you might like it for a season, right? And say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, do this work for a year or two, but after a year, you're going to get tired of it and move on to something else. So it's really looking at what is around you, what are the possibilities that are available to you once you start that new job, and then saying, hey, I'm available to try this new thing out. For example, when I started, I was in buffer prep. And honestly, when I landed in buffer prep, I didn't like it. I'll be honest, it wasn't the place I wanted to land. I really liked cell culture a little bit more. But once it was time for me to transition, I did do some shadowing in cell culture and I loved it. But after 3 years, I was like, honestly, I don't want to be in the labs anymore. I actually really am excited about being a training coordinator, and that's what I ended up doing. So even though cell culture was my first love, and I did get a taste of it, I appreciated more the training side and the change management side. Again, as I said at the beginning, no one would have told me that this is where I was going to land, but it was really just trying things out and seeing what's available there.
Yeah, I'll just add to what you both have mentioned, which is, again, when I shared my journey, I was confident that I was going to be a middle school teacher. That was what I was going to do, and I was determined. No one was going to change my mind. but it's through the people that I've met and the people that actually have faith in me to say, you can do a lot of things. And my career has changed so much from just training the GMPs to moving into an area that I never expected in human and organizational performance, how organizations function, how people think and learn, and how to improve processes. I didn't think I could have ever done that if I was talking to my 19-year-old self. I would have said, nope, that's not what I'm doing. I am not problem solving. I am a school teacher. But it's through the networks and the people that I've met that said, you can do this and try it, and taking those risks. So be open once you start the first job, and talk to people. Say, what do you think I can do? I remember sitting with a mentor saying, there's no way I can take this next job because I know nothing about it. And he actually said to me, you do, because you do X, Y, and Z, and you know how to tie those together. And it was one of my best jobs to date. So keep that in mind. Don't be stuck.
You're going to do career evaluations throughout your career and life and everything. The way that I evaluate opportunities is I don't look at the position title. I look at I make 3 columns. I know this sounds stupid, but I make 3 columns. And I base it off of skills of like things that I'm good at, things that I like to do, and things I want to learn in the next 1 to 3 years, right? And whatever that opportunity is needs to be a mix of those 3, because in terms of those skills, because if you only have 2, either you're not set up for success or you're gonna be bored. Because if you're doing something that you like to do and you're doing something that you're good at, like you're not, and you don't have anything that you're gonna learn, like then you're gonna be stagnant. You're gonna be bored, right? And some people like that. Some people just want that. But if you have something that you want to learn and something that you're good at but you don't like, then you're gonna be miserable, right? So you need to kind of like find a way in those 3 columns, and you need to evaluate, opportunities or like things you want to do, and so it gives you direction of where you want to go. But you never know, because the world changes, the environment changes, the needs change, your life changes. Then you start to reevaluating, like, all right, I need to take a next step because I need work-life balance, or I need, I really want to learn about like business development transactions, right? Like, how do I find those opportunities? And Louisa, you brought up a really good point that you didn't think that you were going to be qualified for this job. And I think we have this habit of like, I am not qualified for this job, so I'm not even going to try. Try, right? Just try. You may not be like, maybe like on the resume or on the job description, you have like maybe 50%. Who cares? Try it, right? It's not all about that. When we put job descriptions out, we're like, all right, let's put everything in there, and then maybe we'll get the perfect candidate. But we're not going to get the perfect unicorn person. We want to see, like, a portion of that is really important to us, and the rest we're like, you know what, you can learn on the job. Because we would rather go for a person that's willing and motivated and show gumption to like learn than like to have the perfect candidate that has all those skill sets because they're going to be bored because they're not learning anything, right? So I just want to put that out there. Like, that was a really good example of you didn't think that you knew, but you did know. So, or someone encouraged you to actually try it. So I want to get that out there too.
I love that so much. Just try. And if you're nervous and maybe a little scared, that's a really good sign. Because that just is another challenge. And the more that happens, the more comfortable you get with that feeling. And you just have to dive in really to find out. And to your point, I also did not like buffer prep. I was manufacturing, but I was only in buffer prep for a year. But I was really interested in QC micro. And I did not even interview for that role. Just after my shift, I would go and hang out with the QC people and be like, what you do is so cool, I want to do that. And then they're like, okay. So
You're one of us now.
So just because there was that interest, like, I'm interested in what you do, that really does go a long way.
Yeah, I was just going to expand upon what you all were saying, but also Pinky. Ask questions. Like, just go for it. a lot of the best roles that I've had weren't even roles that you could apply for. They just created them because, oh, we have a gap, and I asked some questions. Danielle, you want to do it? Yes. I want to do it. So I mean, you kind of build it as you go, is how I say it. Build in flight. And sometimes the leap of faith, where it's just start asking some questions. You see something you don't understand, ask. There's a lot of people that will be in the room maybe quiet. They have the same questions. Be the one to be ahead of it and speak up. That's what makes you stand out. That's what gets you that role, that next step, even if it's not even built yet. And that was a good learning in my career. When I was in my early stages, I probably wouldn't have asked. Now, you gotta lose. It could be a great opportunity for you. So I just wanted to add that piece. Ask questions, and you'll figure out what the skills are as it's in flight, as you're building.
Thank you for your advice. I just have one question. What keeps you motivated to keep going, like even though it's hard? What keeps you motivated to keep going?
Give it a shot. So for me, I'm very people driven. I'm in this industry because I, at my core, similar to many others on this, want to help people. Whether it's the people that I work with day by day, whether it's the patients that we make products for, I want to help people and I care about people. When things are tough, like I mentioned, plant closure, transition, layoffs, things of that nature, you can make a difference just by caring for people or saying a couple words of advice. For me, that's what keeps me going in when I'm having a bad day, get myself together, go for a quick walk, shake it off, and then change your mindset and get back to it. That's for me, what keeps me going is how I can influence positive things in other people's lives versus maybe a negative.
That's such a great question. For me, it's a mix between people, for sure, and learning. I can't decide which one at the moment, but I think that's why I'm in quality assurance, because quality in many roles, you get to oversee a wide range of different areas, from manufacturing and validation to even facilities. I learned so much about equipment and even things out me around my own house. But at the same time, you get to support people and give guidance to people. You learn a lot about yourself as well, because sometimes people need quality when times get tough. So having all those different opportunities is very motivating and driving every day. And that even makes the tough times some of the best times.
Mine is a mixture of both. What keeps me motivated is the people, like people that impact internally, people here, or like you get to meet so many people and it kind of keeps you going. The patients are a big part of it. When I first started at Biogen and I was working on Abonex, one of our commercial products, I found out that one of my close college friends was actually on Abonex. She never told us what drug she was on. And then when she found out she worked at Biogen, she was like, Pinky, you make my drug. Like, I just remember she took it every Friday, and then Sunday you get flu-like symptoms, so like the weekends were always shot, and we would always have to do group projects on Sundays. But I never knew, but she always said that she was very lucky that she had this drug. And the fact that I was actually overseeing and working to manufacture her drug was huge. So I've always kept, that was early in my career, and I've always kept that in mind. So patients have always motivated me, but also, I'm also trying to motivate my daughter and her friends, and also my son, and show like, it's hard to have it all, whatever all is, but then being a role model, right? That you don't need to, if you're gonna find a partner, make sure it's the person that you want in your life, not because you need that person in your life, right? Become independent and all those. So I also want to be a role model, which is also what keeps me going too. So a big part of it is the people part, and then the other part is the learning part, because I learn something new every day, and I think it's amazing. So
I think I'm going to continue the theme here. For me, it goes back to when I went through that activity about what my why was, and going through that activity, I learned that my why was learning, teaching, and the patient. And I didn't know that until I really dug down. I knew that there was the learning piece. I'm like, yeah, I like to teach and I like to learn. But it truly became more evident to me when I went through that process. So there's definitely similarities throughout the panel. And I will say also, being a role model, my oldest is 13, and the biggest joy that I get is every single beginning of school year, her little whiteboard says, I want to be an engineer. And she's done that since she was first grade. And every year I look at her photos and I'm like, oh, she wants to be an engineer. This is so amazing. I've done something right because I've influenced her. I've been a role model in some way. So that's what keeps me going.
I'm pretty much continuing with the same speech that everybody's giving. And I'll start with community, to be honest, is a great motivator. As I was, going through school at Middlesex and then, my job transitions, I stayed really close to my faith community, and I used the opportunities that I had within the companies I worked with to also bring awareness to the opportunities that were there. So it was a great motivator. I would say, when you start working, you're gonna have difficult days. We all have had difficult days. We've all had difficult managers and so forth. And you really need that why. Why do I do this? And find your passion and start walking towards that area of passion within your career. Again, understandable that when you start, you can start anywhere, just as you heard our buffer prep modes up here. But also make sure whatever you're doing, even if you start off and it's not what you want, it's not where your why is, do it with excellence. Like when I was in buffer prep, although I didn't love it, I did it with excellence. And I would like to give one additional advice that's a little bit outside of the question. When you start working, make sure you publicize your achievements. And I think as women, a lot of times we're very great at doing great work without having to have the fanfare. Have the fanfare. Have the fanfare. Make sure everybody knows when you organize the lab, when you clean up the closet, because you would be surprised how those things that you think are not that big of a deal have such an impact with leadership, knowing that you're taking initiative. And as a female, that was something that took me 2 or 3 years before I realized that, the guy who would organize things once a year, he was getting promoted because he made sure all of leadership knew that one effort he did that year, while you're probably doing a lot of extra initiatives without making that publicly known.
I'm just going to close, building on her tangent of be proud in what you do and write down what you do. And so that when you meet with your manager, you can say, I did this, that, and this, because it shows you care, and it shows you're doing a good job. And it's so easy, especially when you take on roles and you work through hard situations. It's easy to forget in a week. I don't recall what we had for dinner on Monday. But if I write down that, I worked hard to get this out on time, make note of that. Take pride that you start a spreadsheet for yourself, and it's something that you don't inherently do. I feel like personally, many people I meet are very humble, and you don't want to brag, and you don't want to, but be proud in what you do, because that's gonna help you grow, and you need to start with yourself.
So with that note, there's
Sorry,
one more
there's one
question.
more in the back.
Hi, thank you so much for the panel. Actually, it was really, really interesting. I was smiling the whole panel. To close, if you could go back and advise your 19-year-old self, knowing what you know and what you know now and considering the world that we are entering in 2036, what are the 3 qualities or capabilities you will focus on developing first?
You want to start? I have a thought.
Let's start up here at Danielle. If I was 19 again, I don't think the mic's on. Oh.
Tess,
Oh, there we go.
if I was 19 again, okay, 3 skills. I'm going to start with the first one. I think I mentioned it is don't sit too long thinking. Just do it. It's not really a skill. It's just get out of your mind and execute. Whatever that is, do. That's when it becomes visible and people see it. There's a term in the stand, on the court or in the stands. I don't know if anybody's ever heard that. On the court, you're thinking and there could be all this noise of what you think other people are thinking. What's on the court is what's actually happening. And if I could tell my 19-year-old self, let's focus on that. That's one. Another is maybe thinking a bit more about how the connections would impact my future. I didn't always do the best at maintaining connections or earlier on in my career, and I'm still getting better at it. I'm still learning, and it can be really hard. But that is a really important one that could create this network for you and create opportunities without even trying too hard. Just keeping the great people like these folks in your network. That's 2. The third, I think, would be don't change yourself too much, right? It takes different types of leaders, different types in the workforce, and that's why we're a team. We all have different strengths. Pinky's or Lisa's or the teams are very different maybe than mine, or some may overlap. But I think earlier on, maybe I was trying to become something that it's okay just to further develop what your skills are now and get better. Always work at others, but you have your natural attributes that are a little bit easier for you. Capitalize on that. That's 3.
I might add just one, and then 2 and 3 can come for lunch. I would tell 19-year-old Jody, I know that we have said here, speak up and ask the question and interviews and things like that. I think of 19-year-old Jody in class in college, and my face would have turned red because it would have been a silly question, and I would have felt dumb, even though others in the class probably had the same question too. And it's easy to say and project that. And with time, you get comfortable, speaking in front of people and not turning red. I would have encouraged myself, my younger self, to who cares? You're not going to be dumb. You carry that from from when you're very young. But you're in college. You're learning, and if you don't understand, don't assume that everyone else does. It's hard to say, well, just be comfortable and put yourself out there. That's not something that it comes with time. But I would try to be in 19-year-old Jody's corner to ask the question when you don't know, because there aren't stupid questions.
I would say that your vantage point is unique. That's what I would tell myself, and I tell you as well. And don't be afraid to say what you see. Like, for example, I'm a very risk-averse person, naturally. So when a project would come up at work, I would quickly see all the risks. And I thought this was a problem, because when you start by announcing all the risks, a lot of people get upset because they had a great idea, and now you're ruining their wonderful plans. But it took me a while to learn that I had great foresight to see the risk far away. And yes, it's going to make people upset initially, But if you find a way to present those areas as opportunities to prevent issues in the future, then people are more happier, right? So you just find a way to understand what vantage point do you have that's unique to you, things that you see that other people don't see, and then find a way to present them. So don't be shy. At first, again, I used to be very shy about it. Like, maybe everyone seems to think this is great and I'm seeing all these problems. Maybe it's me, I'm the problem. No, your vantage point really counts and there's something unique about it and you find a way to present it.
Thank you, Linda. I would say that's your superpower. Identify your superpower. But I thought of that as you were speaking. I would say if I had to talk to the 19-year-old Louisa, I would tell her, similar to what Danielle said, is be comfortable building your network and continue to do it, because I didn't do it early on. And it was really hard to do, and it's something that you have to get comfortable with. So that's probably the first thing. And the other thing is to take risks. And I learned that through many amazing people that I've met in my career. Just the other day, I had a conversation with someone that said, just take the risk. And I said, I know, Jen, I have the little magnet that you gave me once that says take risks, the blue magnet, it's on my desk still. And I have to be reminded of that, so take risks. And a very special person once told me, and she still does every once in a while, she says, Louisa, take the risk, and if you fall, get up, wipe your knees, dust them off, and then turn around and look at all the mountains you have just climbed. And she says it to me all the time. And I'm gonna just say to you, you may not remember the exact words, but if anything, remember to dust off your knees when you fall because you took a risk, and look back, because there are so many mountains you're about to climb.
Echoing everyone, and you see the theme, make sure perfection is not in the way of progress. I think it's back to risk taking. Don't wait until it's perfect to do it. Sometimes you just need to take that chance. The other one is I remember, I mean the gender pay gap is still there, but I remember my 19-year-old self was just like, well, I don't understand why they won't want to hire me because I'm cheaper. So for in terms of engineering degrees and everything. So I'm now I'm thinking why did I say that? So I would like to tell myself, no, you're worth it. Don't settle. I think that goes in anything in life. Don't settle, right? You know what you're worth. From a pay scale perspective, you know what you're worth. From a relationship perspective, you know what you're worth. Don't settle. I think that's what I would tell them.
Oh, I'm still hanging on to this. I love that your question around skills, there's been a huge theme across the board that it's a lot of soft skills. And the one that stands out the most for me is communication. And learning how to communicate in the moment in the way that is needed. Because you have to communicate differently all day long. And that's kind of a hard skill to develop. You have to know how to present information to different types of people. So that can make a huge difference in your career. And it's also a really critical skill in quality because you have to ensure people understand very clearly expectations or what needs to be done quickly. So communication is really a big one. And I love the comments about confidence. When I was 19, absolutely not confident. I still don't claim to be confident, but I think I would have told my younger self, even if you're not feeling confident, learn how to make it look like you are. And that, also, a lot of these skills just take practice.
Thank you. Thank you to our panelists for sharing your experiences with us today. Your stories provided valuable insights to our students and everyone in attendance. Thank you to all students and faculty and staff who attended today. And let's please join me.